Good evening, everyone out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this episode, the primary thing we're going to be going after is repairing the lack of heat in my 1997 Ford E-150 StarCraft conversion van named Enigma. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, get you guys caught up. This van, since I saved it from the crusher basically, has not had heat. You can swing the knob over to heat and you can listen to the actuator do its thing and hear it go whee and do the thing, but no heat. And what has probably happened, it's laid out in a Ford TSB that they didn't advertise too much, is the housing that the actuator plugs into, the plastic cracks. So then when the actuator turns, it does not turn the blend door, which means you don't get heat. You get stuck in whatever position it cracked in. And mine cracked in, I believe, full cold, which was great for the summer, not so great for the winter. So in this video, what we're going to do is fix that. Now, to fix that, we are essentially going to have to remove the heater core, because it's not the heater core housing per se, but it's right in front of it. You have to get the heater core out to get to it, which means we need to drain down coolant, which in my case is fine. I'm still trying to get oil out of the coolant from when the oil cooler decided to jump off the mortal coil. Wow, can't talk today. So I'm not going to film draining the coolant. I'm just going to hit the petcock on the radiator, get it out of there, get it low enough that we don't have to worry about, coolant whizzing everywhere when we start pulling hoses and whatnot. Do that, and then we're going to need to flip to the inside, and there's a lot of canoodling we're going to have to do to get the heater core cover off. Alrighty, so now we're going to take it inside. It's where a lot of the next phase of our work is going to be. So we drain the coolant because we got to remove the heater core in order to get to the blend door housing to replace it. First thing we have to do to work on getting to the heater core is this panel needs to come off. It's only held with push pins, so you give it a decent tug, off it comes. It may fight you a little more. This one's a little bit worn. Okay, next thing we need to do, this plate needs to come off. It is held in by 1, 2, 3, and 4 8mm bolts. So we'll go ahead, get those off, and then we're going to get to the next layer of stuff. Alright, so I attempted to troubleshoot this once before a while ago, and I got pretty close to getting the heater core off, but I couldn't get the cover off. But I was able to determine that the actuator was okay. So if you're watching this video and your heat just randomly got stuck on something one day, or you find that if you set it to max AC or something it still works, that could be that the little motor that turns the blend door is bad for you. But in my case, I know that the actuator, that little motor, is fine. I watched it turn, but it's a known issue with Fords of this era that they snap the housing on the blend door side of things, and then it don't work so good anymore. And since it was summertime, it wasn't a big deal. But now we're approaching winter, and it's a problem. So we get that out of the way, and now this guy's got to come out. And he is held in, let me bring the camera and the light. He is held in with more 8mm. There are 1, 2, I think 3 lurking back there. I think there might be a 4th floating around somewhere. Oh yeah, there's 2 here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's probably 5 and 6. Yeah, so I'm going to get those out and we will continue. So as a note, the two bolts over here that were tucked up right up next to the doghouse over here, I had to get an extension, and this is the only one I have handy. It's kind of ridiculous in length, but it worked perfectly. That let me get on those two, get it out. So now this piece is out of the way. And now that we've gotten all that out of the way, that's going to give us the access we need to get at these little 8mm that are all around, and some of them you can see, some of them you can't, that are all around the perimeter of the heater box case, which is, or the heater core case, which is right here. So you want to do all of that to get the access you need. And I'm not sure, I may need to remove this big heavy brace. Not sure. May need to take that out too so I can slide stuff around. Yeah, I took that big heavy bolt there, and then I took that one there and that one there. There's some grounds hiding back there, and I wonder if those go all the way through or not. Anyway, I think Ford officially asked you to do that, and then they ask you like wedge a 2x4 because the dash will try to fall. But let's see if we can not remove that. Alrighty, so to help get access to that little dude in the corner right there, I took this trim piece out of the way, so hopefully that will help. I've been able to use this long extension combo. I apologize for the lighting, it's dark out, so we're just working from flashlight. But I've been able to use this long extension, and since I got everything out of the way, as you can see, I've just been ripping out the bolts around the perimeter. So let me see if I can get that one in the corner and then see where we stand. Okay folks, this is the heater core. You may notice there is something wrong with it. This is the heater core cover. I had to break this piece off because there is a screw that goes through this side of the cover and goes into a little mount. I could not get to this screw, and the reason why I couldn't get to this screw is because of that enormous metal bracket that I mentioned earlier. It looks like was going to get ugly. Show it to you. So that bracket right there and the giant metal tubular thing it's attached to, I did not feel safe removing it because I think this is a support for the dash, and if you pull this, the whole dash will sag. So I elected to break my heater core cover. I'm going to repair it with some super glue. It broke fairly cleanly, so I can get away with that. This is not how I would recommend doing this. I didn't have the right tool. This would have done it, except for this was too long, and when I tried to get on it, I couldn't. So my suggestion to you would be to drill a hole through this bracket right here, and then if you get your alignment right, you can probably sneak it out. But I was too impatient, and I was willing to accept either making a repair on the heater core cover or accept the cost of purchasing a new one. So that one I'm going to leave to you. But if someone's not been in here before and that little stinking screw is still in there, you're going to have to make some decisions on if you want to cut a little window around where that screw goes, which is what I was trying to do, but I couldn't quite get the angle. As you can see, I was starting to kind of chip around it so I could try to just get it out. But it's not going back in, obviously. So, piece kind of sits. Kind of does this. like I said, it's a pretty clean brake, so I should be able to finagle it just right, and with some clamps I can get this guy back together good enough for what it does. And as long as I don't put this screw back in, we should be fine. Alright, that's where I'm going to call it for the night. I got to go find my super glue, and I will see you guys tomorrow where we go back into the engine bay and we start working on removing the heater core from the heater core hoses. Good evening, everyone. It is a new day. So we are looking on the engine bay side. We're going to be taking a look at what's required to get our heater core out. And it's kind of hard to see, but if you put, this is one of your heater core lines, and it's terminating. You guys see my finger there? It's terminating back in there, and I apologize. I don't have super great light at the moment. Let me see. I can help you there. There, that's better. So you see that line that makes the 90 into the metal bracket up over yonder? Right there. That's your heater core. That's your top line. So that's where it terminates. The quick connects are a little bit beyond that. So in order to get some room to work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top of the oil fill tube off. We can do that by loosening this spring clamp here, sliding it out of the way, and then we can take the top part off. And then I'm also, just give myself a little more elbow room, going to remove this part of the air intake. That's pretty easy. Just up and out. And once we get those two out of the way, I'm going to try to get a better eye on the quick disconnects to see if I can just kind of finagle them out, or if I'm just going to cut the hoses. As a reminder, these are formed hoses, meaning you can't just go to the parts store and buy some heater core hose and be done with it. These are formed hoses with Ford part numbers, and they're not cheap. So you want to try to get the quick connects off if you can, because otherwise it's going to add to your repair bill. All right, so turns out there's an 8mm that needs to come out. There it is, because there's a little bracket here that helps to keep the tube from jiggling. It's this guy right here. And it also turns out that even though I loosened this right here, it didn't want to go. However, the side that actually goes into the valve cover was quite happy to come out. So that's out. And the camera probably can't pick it up very well, but it's pretty oily there. So I almost wonder if that might be leaking a little bit. Oh, this actually also opens up a real clean shot at the PCV valve. So if you need to work on that, it's just a little further down the valve cover in the back. Okay, so this is your opponent that is on the heater core that's got to come off. This is a quick disconnect. Don't know why Ford went to these. Worm clamps are way more awesomer, but here we are. So the key here is you got to get to these two plastic tabs, push them in. You do that, you should be able to pull the quick disconnect off. And the good news is, unlike in my F-250, you actually can see these plastic tabs and have a shot at getting to them in this van versus that truck. That video was pretty gnarly. But anyway, this is what we need to do, is get our hands in there, squish this, and then see if we can't get it loose. Okay, updates. So I totally understood this wrong. How this works, and I can show you, I'm replacing my heater core as well as doing the door repair. So basically how this is supposed to work is the quick connect goes here, goes on the end, and you pull this plastic grip here past this ridge, and then it locks into place. That's how it's supposed to work. And what I found is, I guess because of age, when I pushed down on these outer tabs, it didn't do a hill of beans. So what I did is I took a pick, a 90-degree pick, and I lifted this grip up as high as I could, and on one half of it, it snapped clean off, and that loosened it up. And then on the other half of it, by lifting this up, it made it so I could actually push out here, and it worked, and it actually pushed the whole assembly down. And then I was able to finally tug it off, and it did destroy itself on the way out. So I 100% I'm going to be switching to just worm clamps when I do the reinstallation, because these things, they're just not worth it. So let me go get the old one and show you what it did. Okay, I haven't pulled the doghouse, so I can't remove the hose, but this is the plastic bit that wound up staying on the heater core. And as you can see, I took a small Dremel tool and I just cut through it. Because forget this foolishness. I don't know why I had this funny idea that I would use these things over again. So cut it off. That's one down, one to go. So your process should be take a pick, get under this tab, lift it up so that you can free it up from the hose so it can actually get back down. If you can snap it off, even better. Do that on both sides and give it a good hard pull when you do it. And you should be able to get the hose off, and then you'll be left with this stuck on the heater core. And then take your Dremel tool out with a cutoff wheel, cut this sucker off the heater core so that it can slip through the firewall, and then we can finally get that out of the way. Okay, I've got everything off the heater core, and so now with some wiggling and fussing because of how the hoses are, it'll come out. Now keep in mind, it's going to have stuff in it still. It's still going to have coolant and God knows what else in it, so, you know, keep it right side up if you can. We did all that, and this was our target right here. There's the blend door. And this is the housing that needs to be replaced. Alright, give you guys a better look. So that metal thing back there is the evaporator as part of your AC system. And then here's your blend door. And depending on what you tell it to do, the actuator that is on the side here will move this door to either go full heat or full cold, depending on what you're doing. So that's what we got to replace. The failed housing should be right up over there. I think I actually need to take the actuator off at this point. I'd put it back on for safekeeping. It's a couple of 8mm. See if I can get you a picture here. There it is. It's held in on 3 8mm on the side, I believe. Those gold colored ones. And see if that'll loosen this up so I can just kind of wiggle this out of here. I'm not sure exactly how it's held in. Okie doke. So this is the actuator. As you can see, there are 3 of those 8mm that hold it in, and then the connector itself is just a push the tab down and then pull the connector. And if your fingers aren't covered in lubricant, you can get that out. So let me get this out, and since we're gonna tug on this guy a bit and see how he's held in. Oh, there you go. Just sits there. Cool. We'll be able to take it out and see if we can verify the fit. Alright guys, check this out. On the left, this is the replacement part. Notice the keyway there in the blend door. Looks like the letter D. This is what was in there. So that's a confirmed failure. The plastic of the keyway broke, which made it so that the actuator could no longer turn the blend door. so that when you tried to turn the actuator, it couldn't, your hot and cold got stuck. So we have a confirmed failure for our hypothesis and our diagnostic. So I've got an extra piece of foam I need to get stuck in, but I will go ahead, I'll get that stuck in and then slide this back into position, and I'll probably go ahead and I'll get the actuator aligned, and then we'll test to confirm that, yeah, we do see the blend door moving whenever we toggle the temp wheel or the temp knob. One other thing I noted before we do that is the OEM piece has this foam shell right here. My replacement, which is it's a Dorman, hang on, see what's on this box. It is a Dorman 902-203 for those who need to know the part number. But this one did not have it, so I'm starting to peel this up, and it is coming up, as you can see. And then I'll probably lay down a thin line of, I might use my good old standby RTV, and I'll get this attached, and I may do that for this foam as well. I don't want to use glue because certain glues will just dissolve foam. But this was supposed to be held in with double-sided tape, and as you can see, the tape no worky. But I'll have to do it, bring it inside. It's going to get fairly cold tonight, and if I don't, well, RTV is greatly affected by temperature when it cures, so you got to bring it in if it gets cold. Good evening, everyone. Today is a new day. So RTV has dried, and now you can see we have foam to make a seal. Regardless of the direction you swing the door in. So that worked. And this transferred okay. I tacked down the corners with RTV. And also there are these little wing things that I tacked in. Again, RTV. So that is good, which means I'm going to go ahead and slide this in back in its slot, and I'm going to connect the actuator, and then we're going to test to make sure that this is working appropriately before we continue with rebuilding everything. Alright, since we know that our actuator mounts up and over here, we know there's only one way that this assembly slides back in, and it does indeed slide just on a track. You can see that right there in the corner. So it just slides in, it's sitting there. I'm going to go ahead, and this part's a little tricky, but what you got to do is have your battery connected, turn it to accessory position, and then your blend door should work, your temperature knob will work. As a reminder, by temperature knob I mean the one that's got the blue and the red on it there. And first, test it to make sure that your actuator actually moves. And then you're going to have to kind of gently move the knob until you get this D-post to line up with your hole. And then get it to drop in. And then you have to put the bolts back in. And you have to do that because otherwise what will happen is this won't turn. And it won't turn the door. Instead, the entire mechanism will try to turn around this post. So you got to lock it in place, then you can make your attempt. Okay, I've got we're an accessory, so when I turn this knob, you should see this turn on the actuator. Oh, hang on. There we go. Don't want copyright problems. So let me get closer. Closer. Alright, check it out. See, I'm turning it towards warm right now. And it is slowly turning. So that's full hot. and that's full cold. We're getting there. So the actuator itself is fine. So now we just gotta slowly get this guy to lock in. As you can see, I got it in, and you'll see the door is kind of off in a weird spot. So what I did is I started just moving the door manually until it just dropped in. And because it is a letter D shape, it can only go in one way. So then the next step is I may have to move it a little bit more, but I gotta spin the actuator around until it lines up with its bolt holes and then bolt it back in. All right, guys, I'm gonna kind of set you back here. So keep your eyes on the door. This is full cold. See the door starting to move? I don't know if you can hear the motor, but the motor's like, okay, cool, I'll do this. Still good. Still good. Still good. 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 Still good. There. Hear that? About right there. So about right there, it runs out of door to swing. The door is fully in the up position, so this is full heat, is what this would be. What it should be, if I got this installed correctly. This should be, I don't know how that's full heat though. I guess I'll just have to hook it up and test it. I don't think I got this backwards. I don't see how it could be backwards, but because there's only one way that this assembly can go in, because of where you got to put the actuator in. Anyway, check this out. So that's all the way up. Oh, sorry about that. But look at where my temperature knob is. So that's max heat. I don't know if that actuator is a little off, or the doorman part isn't quite right, or something. But if you turn it the rest of this way, all you're doing is putting stress on the actuator and stress on the keyway in the housing. And I bet that's how this got broken. Is for whatever reason, it's always sat right here, is all the way closed for heat, and it just broke after being put under a bunch of stress over time, and then it just failed. So I may wind up making a mark or something right here, just so I'm aware, and I don't overcrank this thing, because I really don't feel like doing this again. But you will notice, if I throw this all the way back to max cold, I'll bring you back down here. Comes down just fine. And that's how I found it when I first took all this apart. So all right, I think that will just about do it for that. So the next thing we need to do is reinstall, or in my case, install a new heater core. All right, guys, check it out. You see, we're getting ready to do the heater core, but you see these two holes here and here? That is for your heater core, the lines to go back. I'm going to see if I can't do this. Okay, you guys see the daylight there? Those two holes you see behind the frame, those are, yeah, there we go. That's where the heater core tubes go through the firewall into the engine bay. So the heater core itself actually gets installed like this. So if we do a side view here, that's how it goes in, is on its side. The bigger line, I think that's a 5/8 is at the bottom, and I think the top is a 3/8, I think. But it goes in like that. And when you actually go to install the core, see if I can get the camera set for you. Alright, a little cockeyed, but this will do. So you come in, you're going to feed, move the light a little bit. You're going to feed the two tubes through the frame, and you're going to have to kind of wiggle it a bit, kind of force it a bit, because there's a bend in it. You're going to wiggle it a little more. It'll get the rest of the way through. And there you go. Heater core is now installed. So I still got to fix the cover with the tape. But at this point, you could go ahead and throw that on. I would not recommend it though, because... Oh, how did that happen? That got hooeyed in transport, I think. You're going to want to leave it like this so that you can do a leak check, basically. Whenever you reconnect your lines, put fluid in, do a leak check, make sure this isn't leaking. New does not mean good. New generally just means not tested these days. So make sure you do that. Also, if at this point in time you haven't done it, it's 3 bolts that hold your actuator on. Make sure you don't forget to get those on. I still need to replace my heater core lines. So I'm going to be taking the doghouse off at this time and doing that. So guess I will start doing that because I am in the neighborhood. So doghouse, you got a latch here. We have a latch down here. You're going to flip it out, rotate it up, then you tighten it back up again, or you extend it out, one of the two. Point is, there's a catch right there, and you take care of it, get it loose. And this will, of course, catch on anything and everything when you try to pull it out. There is a similar setup on the other. So we got some wiring. This from the 10 CD changer they put in this thing. And then we come down over here. This, I'm in front of the driver's seat at the moment. Pull that up. Alright, at this point the doghouse is loose, and all you got to do, it's kind of a pain, is you kind of have to bear hug it and wiggle it back until it comes out. Then you turn it sideways. I got to move the TV. So let me do that first, and then you can turn it sideways and move it back so you have access to the engine from this side. Alright, like I said, you kind of, to get in here and just kind of start wiggling. Make sure you have nothing that's getting pinched. And make sure nothing accidentally relatched, which I think this did. Yes, it did. And you kind of have to lift it up. It's a pain, but that's the general idea. Okay, once you have the doghouse off, you can see why it needed to come off. These are your heater core lines. They reach all the way back here. They come over to here, and then they terminate into another quick connect, which I'm just going to cut like I did in the engine bay, and this one I can actually show you. Good morning, everyone. Today is a new day. So we're going to pick this up working on removing the other side of these heater core hoses. And again, if the only reason you're watching this video was to figure out the blend door thing, that's pretty much done at this point. But if you have a rear AC and you're wanting to know how to do your heater core stuff, well, keep on watching. So these have quick connects like on the other side, at the heater core side. I'm going to do the exact same thing to them that I did to the heater core stuff. I have this light duty Dremel with the cutoff wheel. Just going to cut in here. That frees up this tab, and once this tab is free, then this doesn't grip anymore and you can pop it off. A little something like this. All right, and then this should just come off. You know, arsenal coolant. It's good. It's good. All right, so that is out of the way. Once you do this, you see there's just a couple of O-rings here that have to come out. I can probably just get them out with my fingers. Yeah. It's 1, 2. I think there's a third one still on there. Oh, no, that third one fell to pieces. Interesting. I wonder if that's where my leak was. I've had a leak in the cooling system for a while. Not been sure what it is. I was hoping that as part of this process here that I'd fix it. So I'm going to use my cutoff wheel again. Make a notch in this so I can get it free. Oh, fine. No, still a little bit left. Anyway, that's what you're going to do. I'll repeat that process with the second one, and I'll bring you back once these are prepped and ready to go. Alright, I'm going to take video for you guys participating at home, but I'm going to take a look at the other connections these hoses have. I think it's the larger of the two, has a line that it has a T right here, and then it has a short run off of that T that comes in here, and you use a spring clamp there so you can take some pliers to get that loose. And then both lines go up and they go in. As you can see, they go into a bracket a little ways down the line. See, I'm wiggling one. So you want to pop them out of that bracket, and then you should just be able to pull the lines. I'll probably pull them back instead of forward, but you can get the lines out is the key thing after you take loose this and that. So I'm going to do that, and then I will bring you guys back. And by the way, this is not a leak. Anyone who sees the video, not a leak. That's by design. Letting you know. So I did miss that there's actually two T's you got to worry about. Other one's here. That's the other end of it. And that's the other line. The actual T joint is right there. You can kind of, my fingers are on it. So I did some detective work, and the replacement part I bought is a Gates. Get this off here. It's a Gates 22624, and that is the one where your T-piece comes into this line here, which I'm not exactly sure what that is. And then your other replacement line is going to be a Gates 22613, and that is the other line where T its T goes into here. So I'm going to go up front and make sure everything looks okay in the engine bay. This is just mocked in. Obviously, I'm going to switch to worm clamps, which is I got to make sure there's enough slack that this is still going to work. Because it was designed around the idea of using your quick disconnects on both sides, which I'm trying to move away from that. So we will see what we get, what we're going to have to do to make it work. Alright, so if you guys take a look, you can see we're going to be fine on length. I've got it mocked into place right there, and we are good. I actually have it dropped into its little guide right there, whole 9 yards. Come back around to the back, make sure nothing got pulled so much that it kinked or anything like that. It would impede flow. And the answer is no. We are fine. Cool. So I will get this out of the way for the moment and make it easier to get the other one off. And then I'll go from mocking this up. I'll put clamps on it and we'll get it all sorted and keep on trucking. Alright, get you guys down in there. There we go. So you can see there are now worm clamps on there. I think I got the order right. I honestly don't think it matters. The water pump's going to push the coolant around in a loop one way or the other. So I don't think it's a huge issue, but I'm pretty sure I got it right. I know I've got the hoses on the back correct. But I've got them back in their clip thing, which the best way to take this loose is to slip a screwdriver under the lock. You can barely see it, fingertip right there. Pop it out. It's the easiest way to open that up. The replacements I used, the hose diameter is the same, so you're going to have to muscle it a bit to get it over the bigger of the 2 tubes on the bottom. But a little silicone spray will make things go a long, long way. So on the, actually bring you around over here. On the back here, I reused the spring clamps for our 2 hook ends back here. See that one right there? And then I did worm clamps up there. But everything is now clamped and sealed, so we are prepared to fill once again. I'm going to take an additional step of cleaning my degas bottle, but that's because of an unrelated issue. You do not need to do that as part of this video. Do make sure if you're back here, and you should check on the condition of this little dude right here. That is a very, very, very common vacuum leak, because these wear out and they get holes blown in them. So always worth the time to check that out. Make sure that your PCV is seated, which mine should be. Yeah, it is right now. I did a kind of a custom job on it. I don't know the camera. There it is. There we go. Kind of a custom jobby there because the original line run is not great, so I made it more better. But I'm gonna do what I got to do, and oh, that looks kind of interesting. That's all the extra wiring from the head unit install I did. But I'm gonna clean out my degas bottle and put the oil fill tube back in, and after that I'll fill with coolant. And we're going to test. I'm not going to put the cover back on or even put the doghouse back on yet, because we need to make sure we can do leak check. Alrighty. So at this point, we're all buttoned back up. Air box is back in. Don't forget to reconnect your MAF sensor connector back there. We've got our dipstick back in, that 8mm bolt up there. We've got, in my case, I put the degas bottle back in after I sprayed it out, and I have filled the system up to where we should be. I expect that by the time I get around to testing this, that level is going to drop because it's slowly burping itself, gravity burping as much as it can. Some of the air is not going to come out until we just run it, and that'll force air eventually into the degas bottle, and that'll take care of that. But for the moment, we're as together can be. As I mentioned earlier, I did not put any of this back on or anything like that because I want to see that it does not leak under pressure. And also we need to see if our blend door is actually going to work. Though we won't really be able to tell that until we verify this and close the doghouse back up, because if you've ever ran the engine with no doghouse, it gets very hot in the cab in a hurry. So we got to verify this, then we can verify that. But I am out of time for this evening, and I will be finishing this video. You guys will join me again tomorrow morning where we wrap this up and hopefully we see a successful series of repairs. Good morning, everyone. Today is a new day. So I'll let this sit overnight. The coolant level stayed stable, so at least with no pressure on the system, we're not leaking. This is good. So you can see I've overfilled it slightly. I know that there's definitely air pockets that haven't shook their way out yet, so that I expect that to drop as we go about things. Let's go ahead and let's crank it, and then we wait. So plot twist, apparently I had left the doors open too long doing this, that, and the other of the last week and discharge the battery. So I'll let that charge back up a bit, then we'll try to crank it. Alright folks, so as you can see, system is up to operating temp. These connections look fine. The connections down over here look fine. I don't see any leaks coming out of the heater core. The only thing I've seen is there's a little wet mark down in there, and I don't know where I put the flashlight, but there's a wet mark there. I'm keeping an eye on it, but I don't think it's actively leaking. But I do think I've got an air bubble right here, because this hose won't get hard, and it should. So the degas bottle pulled down quite a bit. I'm going to turn this off, top it back off, and see if we can't force that air bubble out. Alright, so I don't know if you guys will be able to see. I'll try. The top clamp is leaking. See how it's kind of hard to see, but you see how it's kind of wet right there. If you punch it, it'll leak. So by punch it, I mean I did a wide open throttle event and then I watched it squirt to verify failure. So we're gonna take this guy back off, see if we can't tighten that clamp up a little more. Since we got the air intake out of the way, you can see wetness around from when it squirted. And I had tightened these with a flathead. Apparently I suck at that, because I just came back in with a... What is that? Is that a vacuum line? Okay. I just came back in with my 8mm, and the clamps, they were loose. So they are now not loose. And we're going to try this again. So a couple notes. When you get to the step where you're putting this reinforcement back in, the narrow side goes up top, the fat side goes on the bottom. Has to go this way because these can only go one way, to make sure that the piece that bolts onto it, which is this piece, will actually bolt on correctly. So these are all 8mm. Don't forget to put this trim piece back in. If your doghouse won't seat and close, make sure you take a look up in here to see if you've got some wiring pinched in the seal. That happened to me. It's all happy now. I'm just going to keep putting this all back together, and then we'll do that last test to see if indeed finally the heat works. Alright, moment of truth. Right now, as you can see, we're set to cool and vent, and I'm getting like 90 Doesn't feel like that, but getting 92. Yeah, okay. So the engine's already warmed up, so if I swing this door over to the mark, but not past, just to the mark. Oh yeah. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we have heat. So this has been a successful repair. And hopefully I don't have to do this for a very long time, because this was a very annoying repair. But it is complete. Alrighty folks, that's going to do it for this episode where we successfully fixed the heat issue with my van with a broken blend door. Did a couple other things along the way, but that was the primary. So that's all done. Good repair. If you found this video interesting, if you found it entertaining, if you learned something, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. That does help to grow the channel, which allows me to bring you more content like this. Also, please leave a comment. I like to read them, I like to reply to them, and I do like to learn from them. And lastly, guys, let me make the mistakes so that you don't have to. I'll catch you guys next episode.